Welcome in tonight, folks, to the Huddle. We have a great show for you. At least that's what we try to tell you every time. But I think we have a real good one tonight because I got Will Palaszczuk next to me, so he'll be able to kind of pick up the slack.
Why not?
You know, I'm not in a great mood right now. My Bruins just lost for those at home that are hockey fans. So right
okay,
now,
that makes two of us
just
today.
A quick hockey talk right now, okay?
Makes two of
Stanley
us
Cup
not being
is
in a
all
good
tied.
mood.
Stanley Cup is all tied up. St. Louis tied up the series tonight. Right now, the score was 4-2. I believe that was the final score. So the Bruins right now and the St. Louis Blues is going to be the best of a three-game series.
Should be fun.
When you look at it.
Going back to Boston.
Going back to Boston on Wednesday. On Thursday, excuse me. Thursday will be that. But let's talk about things that I believe more people in this area probably care about. Starting with booze in athletic events at USC. That was the hot discussion over the weekend. We're trying to figure out what's going to be going on. And you look at football in particular because you got to make a decision by August 1st. And, of course, football season starts a couple weeks after that.
Yeah, this is a very long overdue decision by the Southeastern Conference in my mind, Mike. There have been a couple of schools across the country who have started pilot programs to try and see, okay, can they make an additional amount of revenue from serving alcohol? Basically, getting a piece of something that was already done by its patrons in the past, and now it's an opportunity for them to kind of get a piece of the pie, pardon the pun. Now, there are logistical issues involving this as well, though, from USC's perspective. People who have gone to concerts at Colonial Life Arena know that there's been issues trying to get alcohol at those events. People from the Beyonce concert last year, of course, at Williams-Brice have the same feeling. But it is worth it, in my mind, in order to try and make this happen and possibly potentially curb some of the binge drinking that does go on at events such as USC football.
And let's look at that, okay? We're going to try to go through this as quickly as possible because I know we try to keep the topics flowing here. But when you look at that, because that's one of the things people are looking at, which is it really going to limit that? Do you think kids are still going to go out there, drink as much as they're going to want, and then go inside? Because these college kids, they might not want to pay for the money inside. You know, I think, in my opinion, I think it's always good to be able to give people the option.
Right.
The option. You know, you don't want to go to the games. I don't want to have to deal with the drunk college kids. Well, you know what? There's already drunk college kids. We're in a college town. You know, that's just how it is. Florida, same thing. Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Welcome to the SEC. Welcome to college football. You guys get it. A lot of you have lived here your whole life. You don't like it, stay on your couch. Be able to do what you got to do there. I think people, especially when they're paying for as much as they are, you need to be able to give them that option.
Even if you don't necessarily curb that problem, it's something, and I use the same argument that I use towards legalized sports betting.
Yep.
It's already happening. You're not stopping it. You might as well have a piece of the pie, a piece of the action. There were some schools that said they could possibly make up to $500,000 per year just in that revenue. It'd be very, very hard for a school to turn that down, especially one that might need the money as much as USC does.
Yeah, and you see it. I mean, this is a college town. We talk about that all the time. Professional sports, though, they have alcohol at their games.
Of course.
And people look at it as this is the pro sports team down here.
Of course.
College sports in the South, especially South Carolina, this is your pro sports team. Why not? Why not have it? The kids, all right, you know, you got to go to a pro game. You go to an Atlanta Braves game. What are you going to do? You're going to hide the kids' eyes? You can't see the booze? I mean, it's out there. We're not talking about the hard stuff. I mean, that'd be a whole different story. Wine, beer. That's what we're talking about.
I was say, would you rather have somebody pay $11 for a Budweiser or Bud Light, or would you rather than be sneaking in a flask that has hard alcohol in there?
And that's another good point. If the price is so high, you know what? Maybe some of these college kids won't buy it because they're like, I'm not going to spend 10, 15, 20 bucks. They're going to keep doing what they're doing right now.
Exactly.
It's going to be able to give the people who want to have a drink, more so the folks that are a little bit older, the option.
And this gets rid of the faux meritocracy of having to, you know, be a donor in a suite where you can be able to drink. It gives the people who are the commoners, if you will, the more common people, an opportunity to have a beer at a game if they want to.
Yes or no? Quickly, yes or no? Does it happen this year?
At USC?
Yeah.
I hope so, Ray Tanner, if you're watching.
I'm leaning right now towards no just because I don't know how quickly it's going to happen, but we'll see. I know they're going to look into it. Football, though, of course, is the big one everyone wants to know because it's going to make a decision by August 1st. How about some college baseball, though? Clemson Tigers in a spot they know far too well. Couldn't get out of regionals. Again. Now, this wasn't the Clemson team like we've seen in the past. What I mean by that is just the way they played, especially towards the middle, back into the season and conference play. They struggled. I believe they had a 10-game losing streak in conference play at one point. What do you make of this team?
Well, you realize that it wasn't necessarily the full season's worth of effort that we've seen from Clemson in the past, but the way that they went out in regional play was a movie that many Clemson fans had seen before. The fact of the matter is, Clemson does not have the ability with its pitching staff to get deep in games, and because of that, that taxes their bullpen and conversely causes their offense to press. And as a result of that, they just were not able to keep things in front of them, keep things at least in a perspective that they needed to. They got a great game in the opener against Illinois. Davis Sharp bailed out Jacob Hennessy, who did not have it through 2 1/3 innings. And then the next night, Matt Clark, it was the same old story. He gets blown up early. The bullpen gets taxed. The offense presses. Same thing happened against Jacksonville State. And you're left with a Clemson team that for the 4th consecutive season under Monty Lee does not have a second weekend in them in the NCAA tournament.
And you bring up Monty Lee because he's done a phenomenal job.
Certainly.
But once you get into postseason play, I mean, we've seen it in other sports. For example, look at Brian Kelly. Here's a guy that sometimes they only have 1 loss, 2 losses in a season, but they can't get done in the postseason play in some of the big games. So you hear the boosters, you hear the fans, everyone kind of starts chirping a little bit. Is Monty Lee on the hot seat? I know that sounds crazy. To me, I don't think that's even a question. I think what he's done is a phenomenal job. But some people out there, it just happens. Can't win in postseason play. Is that just a ridiculous statement?
I don't think he's on the hot seat right now, Mike, because I don't know if you at Clemson want to establish the standard that getting to the NCAA tournament is just not good enough. And I think that part of it is attached short-sighted. But if this continues to happen, you get to a certain point and you hit the pause button and you hit the big thud that you lose in the regional like this, especially after 3 consecutive years before this hosting a regional, then I think you're going to have some issues. Clemson is a team that expects to get to the NCAA tournament. 32 of the last 33 years they've been in the NCAA tournament. But as a result, these last couple of years under Monty Lee, they've gotten to a certain point and stopped. So I'm not saying he's on the hot seat, but within the next 1 to 2 to 3 years, they're going to have to figure out a way to get to the second weekend, or else Clemson fans are going to start talking to themselves and, more importantly, start talking to Director of Athletics Dan Redicovic.
I know we're up against the time, so let's just keep this rolling with Coastal, another team here in South Carolina. We know that they won a championship a couple of years back. They're not going to the second week. Here's a team, though, that probably shouldn't have even been here, at least going into last weekend. They were able to win the Sun Belt Championship. They were just red hot, scored over 80 runs in those 6 playoff games in the Sun Belt tournament, including 26, which is a tournament record. I know it's going to be disappointing because that's just the standard that was created over there and what we've seen from them over the last couple of years, but still disappointing anytime now when you have a team that's built up that high, they just can't get over that first weekend.
Coastal does have a lot of players who've been left over kind of from those years and guys who've been a part of that program that Gary Gilmore has built. And you hate to say that a team is quote-unquote happy to be there, but having to win the way that they did and earn their way into the tournament by getting the automatic bid, you certainly didn't necessarily have the highest hopes, although that regional seemed ripe for the taking. The fact of the matter is that Georgia Tech just proved to be a little bit too strong for them in that elimination game, and as a result, they could not hold the 7-2 lead, and as a result, they're going home early, but they have nothing to be ashamed of.
And Rachel, let's just roll right into that next VO, because I know we're up against the time right now, talking about the next subject. You know, Mississippi State, here's a team that is headed to another super regional for a 4th straight year with 4 different head coaches. Baseball, maybe not like football, maybe it'd be totally different, but I don't care.
That's difficult.
4 straight years, 4 different coaches. I think back to last season, they shouldn't have been anywhere close to Omaha. They made it. They have a phenomenal player, phenomenal players, and what they've been able to accomplish over there. Because I remember working over there 4 years ago, and this team, very young team, they've all stuck together, and they're here again.
And they're there with a coach that many thought was going to be the man at least looked at and targeted at South Carolina when the opening happened after Chad Holbrook and Chris Lemonis. He goes over there from Indiana and has turned that thing into a fantastic turnaround job, as you mentioned. 4 different coaches in 4 years, headed to the second weekend. High marks for them.
Jake Mangum, I've really enjoyed that kid and what he's been able to do. Gets hits galore. We're going to take a time out. We come back. How about some hits from the field? C.J. Spiller. Oh, you couldn't hit him when he was playing with the Clemson Tigers. We'll talk about him and the Hall of Fame inductees on the ballot. Coming up, we can return.